Hey there, good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. For some people, today is a moon day. For others, tomorrow is the moon day. So, regardless, I hope you have a really nice moon day whenever it is that you observe it. And today I am answering a very important and also a fairly common question regarding hamstrings. So, this question is from Natasha, and I'll just read it to you. I'd love advice on hamstring strengthening exercises in specific places to avoid overstretching in primary series. I feel my right hamstring is in rough shape after having practiced primary a lot the last few months. However, I want to keep practicing certain poses, except it's hard to know the difference between just being sore, having tight hamstrings, slightly overstretched, and fully injuring it. All right, so I'll take a stab at this question. The first thing is that overstretching your hamstrings in primary series is really common. And I think that it's something that a lot of us experience at some point in primary series. So what do you do? There's a couple of things that you can do about it. And typically I would work with a student on a case-by-case basis with this. So it's a little bit hard to pinpoint it if I don't actually know your practice. But depending on who the person is, the first couple of things that I always recommend when your hamstrings are feeling overstretched in primary series is to keep the knees a little bit softer in a lot of the postures. So when something's overstretched, that means it's overstretched. So the cord that you would kind of want to do the opposite, which is to contract the hamstring. So if you are talking specifically about forward bends, then one way to keep the hamstring more engaged in forward bends is to slightly bend the knees like this, but it's more than that. It's much more than just slightly bending the knees. I actually want you to push your heels down. And if you're watching and if you're on the floor, do this right now. Push your heels down and try to pull back. So you actually, it's not just that you're keeping the knees bent, it's that you're like making this sensation that you're drawing your heels back to you so that the hamstring, like you should actually feel work in the hamstring. And then from here, fold forward. So you wouldn't fold forward as much as you possibly can, but you're folding forward in a way where the hamstring's contracting instead of just stretching long. So that's my first suggestion, is to really look at the way you're approaching the forward bends in primary, and to not only bend the knees, but bend them, push the heels down, and pull the heels back so it feels like a hamstring curl. And I think that's really important. And that's my first suggestion. So if it's stretched, you want to work on strengthening. That's one way to do it. Now, there are certain postures in primary series that are going to be particularly helpful. You might already be able to guess, because primary series is so much forward folding, it would actually be the opposite action that is going to help your hamstrings. So Parsvottanasana, Setu Bandhasana, Urdhva Dhanurasana. These are all postures that can really help primary series. So maybe you want to do them more than once, or maybe you want to hold them more than 5 breaths. And I think I spoke incorrectly. These are all postures that will help your hamstrings. Why? Because if you're doing it correctly, you're using your hamstrings to lift you up when you're in these back bends, and that really strengthens the hamstrings. So you want to, one, be sure that you're using your hamstrings in your back bends, and I think that that's a little counterintuitive, but obviously, like anytime you're lifting your thigh up, you do it by contracting the muscle underneath it. Let's take Parsvottanasana, for example. Lift up and feel the hamstrings really lift up. So my hamstring's totally engaged right now. I could even try something like this. This is for Pilates, to further engage the hamstring. You could also do a modified version of it like this. This also engages the hamstrings. Setu Bandhasana, which I'm not going to demonstrate, but that also will work the hamstrings, as well as Urdhva Dhanurasana at the end of primary, at the end of all your practices. You could also do the regular bridge pose, not the Ashtanga style bridge pose, but bridge pose before Urdhva Dhanurasana. That also really strengthens your hamstrings. You could strengthen them even further by squeezing a block in between your legs. So these are all things that are going to help keep the legs super engaged. And that's what you want when you have overstretched. You want the opposite action, which is engagement. So My next suggestion would be to start to explore some of the postures from second series. So if I'm working with somebody and they have an overstretched hamstring, depending on who they are and where they are in their practice, I may actually just start moving them into second series, because postures like Shalabhasana, Bekasana, Dhanurasana, Ustrasana, Lagha Vajrasana, these are all postures that are excellent for your hamstrings. So very often moving into second series is a nice way to heal a hamstring. That's a little bit of, that might be an approach that your teacher's not comfortable with, or that you're not comfortable with doing yourself. But I think regardless of who you are, adding these two postures from second series before back bends can really be helpful. First one, you're gonna, if you know me, you're gonna guess it's Shalabhasana. So Shalabhasana is very similar to up dog, actually. You lift everything up off the floor. But one way you could do it is by, let's just practice it. Hopefully you can still hear me. Okay, forehead down, really focusing on lifting the thighs up, just the thighs. So eventually the upper body comes up too, but just lifting the thighs is a great way, you can even just do one at a time, to strengthen the hamstrings. Another way to strengthen the insertion point of the hamstring is to lift the leg up, pull it in, and then place it back down. So it's subtle, I don't know if you can see it, but I lift it up and then I pull it in to the hip socket, and then I lower down. So really working on getting the thighs up here. And then after that, lift the whole body into the posture of Shalabhasana. And you would stay here for 5 breaths and then move into the second variation with the hands and chaturanga arms for 5 breaths, and then up dog and down dog. So that's one posture that is excellent for hamstrings. Lots of leg work, lifting up against gravity there, and it's a safe way to back bend, and it's a really safe way to strengthen your hamstring. And then my next suggestion is Dhanurasana, which is just building on that Shalabhasana. And you would actually enter it in a super similar way. So you can bend your knees like this, feet together, head down. This is actually a Pilates exercise. Lift the legs up and lower, and you can do that many times, and this is truly a Pilates exercise, toning the glutes and the hamstrings. And then I would suggest that you enter it from that Pilates exercise to get into Dhanurasana, which is lifting, squeezing, and then reaching back. Because if you enter Dhanurasana with lifting the legs first, then the hamstrings activate and the hamstrings are engaged. And that's what you need to help heal your hamstring. Because overstretching is a real thing and super common. You're not alone in that, Natasha or whoever else is feeling it. And those are some ways that you can start working on strengthening within the context of your regular practice. So let's just review really quickly: softening the knees, drawing the heels in. So it's not just softening the knees, but it's doing it in a way that you feel like you're dragging the heel in so that the hamstring contracts. The second way is Parsvottanasana, Setu Bandhasana, Urdhva Dhanurasana, those other back bends in primary series. I showed you the Parsvottanasana with the leg extended, and these types of variations, they don't take much time, super strengthening. So again, if you've overstretched, you're focusing on strengthening. So those are great ways to tone the hamstrings. And then finally, perhaps considering moving into second series if that's appropriate for you. And if you, if you have somebody who can help support you in that, a teacher's obviously helpful when you're learning a new series. If you already do second series, I would maybe say do less primary series and more second series. And if you don't do any second series, but you are looking to help heal your hamstring, I would specifically think about adding Shalabhasana, the way I just demonstrated, and Dhanurasana to your practice, because those are truly postures that can help heal the hamstrings. So Natasha, I hope that answered your question. Does anybody else have any questions for me about hamstrings? Okay, then I'll wait one more second because I think I've got a little bit of a delay here. And then if there aren't any more questions, I'm going to sign off, and I will see you all very soon. Bye. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here. Happy Moon Day.